Hey guys, happy Tuesday and welcome to an abbreviated version of the Fox 5 Live Zone. I'm your host, Guy Lambert. Thank you so much for joining us. All right, it's the talk of the town, heck, the talk of the nation. President Trump federalizes the D.C. Police Department. We'll break it all down for you and so much more. But first, how about we talk weather, shall we? Tucker Barnes joins us right here on the Live Zone for a look at just that. Hello, my friend.
Hello. Happy Tuesday.
Happy Tuesday.
How you doing?
I'm good.
Good.
Yeah.
You back enjoying the summertime
I was at Martha's Vineyard. I was just telling you off air. It was cool up there, 77 degrees. I get back here and a lot of humidity, sir.
There's a reason people pay those fancy prices to go to that nice island, huh? They get the beautiful weather.
Yeah, I tell
Yes,
you.
actually, we've had beautiful weather around here too, and I don't want to say it comes to a crashing end, but kind of back to reality here. We're finally going to see our first 90 of the month. Guy, I'm gonna impress everybody who's watching right now.
Okay.
With some fun facts. Ready?
Let's do it.
Coolest start to the month of August since back in 1964.
Wow.
We have not hit 90 degrees in D.C. yet this month of August.
What?
Yeah, isn't that amazing?
That is amazing.
Also, it hasn't rained in the month of August yet, so looks like we could, put an end to all that today. We'll be dodging a few storms later today.
I got a question.
Yes?
Were you alive in 1964?
I was not alive in 64, but thank you for asking.
No doubt.
I'm sure those that were born in 64 are resentful right now, guys. 79 in Washington this morning, 78 or out of Dallas. Overnight lows were elevated. I do want to mention the humidity's up, and again, kind of back to reality here. We're going to go from full overcast early this morning to partly sunny this afternoon, and we're not going to get a lot of rain, but one or two showers or a pop-up thunderstorm, very widely scattered later today. So most of the day should be dry and just kind of seasonably sunny and hot, right?
Okay.
I mean, 90 is very close to where we should be. It's not unusual. It's just we've been kind of spoiled the last week and a half or so. Big picture, we're going to keep the heat around for the end of the week here with daytime highs around 90. 91 this afternoon. Let me express this. Next real chance for rain and thunderstorms will not be today. It will be tomorrow afternoon. That'll be our best chance this week. And then we'll be right around 90 for the finish to the work week into the weekend. It does look like a hot weekend, but a dry weekend. If you have plans and they involve the great outdoors and you're not flying to an exotic place like your friend Guy here, it will be just fine to be local.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, it is what it is. It's dog days of summer. So
Dog days of summer. You got it.
Stuff. Tucker Barnes, all things weather right here on the Live Zone. Guys, if you haven't already done so yet, make sure you download the Fox Local app and take that hot forecast with you any and everywhere you go. Well, at this very hour, senior Army leaders are greeting D.C. National Guard personnel as they report for duty today. This after President Trump announced yesterday he's placing the D.C. Police Department, quote, under direct federal control, unquote, and deploying National Guard troops to the nation's capital. Not too far from where that meeting took place, D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser and Attorney General Pam Bondi met with the goal of getting on the same page. Many Democratic lawmakers are now blasting President Trump for deploying the National Guard to the city and seizing control of its police force in an effort to crack down on crime. Among them, this man, D.C. Councilmember Robert White, at large, now joins us right here on the Live Zone. Councilmember, always good to see you, sir, and welcome to the show.
Good to be with you, Guy.
So I'm very curious. I guess first and foremost, were you surprised with regard to President Trump federalizing the Metropolitan Police Department?
I wasn't surprised that the president tried to federalize the police department, but the unfortunate part is that he's doing it under a false premise. He's saying that crime is out of control in D.C. when we are at a 30-year low, quickly pushing especially violent crime down. So rather than moving us continually in the right direction, he wants to knock us back into the 1960s.
He has also made mention of removing, and I will quote, all homeless from Washington, D.C. Your take on that, sir?
Look, I don't think there's a jurisdiction in the country that cares about homelessness as much as Washington, D.C. But what we have to know is you can't throw people away. Nobody really chooses to live outside as their first option. So if the president wants to help with homelessness, he will stop cutting funds for vouchers, stop cutting funds for public housing, stop cutting funds for human services. That's how we get people off the street, not just by pushing them out.
Your colleague, Councilmember Trayon White, has in so many words welcomed the president's actions, saying that additional law enforcement would in essence be an added bonus. Do you agree with him?
I don't understand that comment, Guy. Federal military officers are not trained to be in our neighborhoods to do community policing, nor is the intent of the president public safety. If the intent was public safety, he wouldn't praise and pardon the people who bloodied federal and local officers on January 6th, who stormed our Capitol. What we're seeing here is a double standard that reminds me again of going back to the 1960s. We know what works in public safety. Major cities are doing this well. In DC, in Baltimore, we're pushing crime down. So rather than use us as a political pawn, work with us, because we do have solutions, but we need real partnership.
Councilmember, I had the opportunity to read your statement you released following President Trump actually federalizing NPD. In so many words, you yet again called on officials, if you will, and your fellow lawmakers to bring about D.C. statehood.
It's so important, Guy. If DC were a state, we couldn't have our police force federalized at the whim of a president. Now, whether you agree or disagree, what you have to realize is the vulnerability of democracy. And importantly, the president said next he's going to California, to Illinois, to New York. And so he intends to do this in other places. So we need people to stand with DC now, support DC statehood so that we can protect our democracy, not just locally, but nationally.
Councilmember, under the Home Rule Charter, the mayor, the Metropolitan Police Department, and the D.C. Council, they in essence remain in authority, and federal intervention is only permitted for narrow, specific purposes. But I have to tell you, there is so much confusion surrounding all of this. For example, the question was posed to me, is D.C. top cop Pamela Smith still the chief of police?
Chief Smith is still the chief. She still reports to the mayor. The remarks in the president's press conference were different than what's in the presidential order, because the presidential order has to at least somewhat follow the law. And so the scope of this is much more limited, but I believe that the administration, federal administration, will try to go beyond the scope. So my message to residents, especially young people, is look, no time is the right time to commit a crime, but now is the right time to get on track. A lot of us know the phrase mess around and find out. This is find out time, and I don't want our young people to find out the hard way. So if you need help, if you need resources, reach out to local officials, me, the mayor, the council, local organizations. That's what we need to do now, and DC has to stick together at this time.
So many times we've heard the phrase, this is chess, not checkers. And with that being said, sir, I'm curious, your next move.
Look, I'm going to keep working to protect the district. I've worked with my colleagues and sometimes just by myself going up to Capitol Hill, knocking on the doors of members, sometimes Democrats, sometimes Republicans, and letting them know what a violation of democracy it is that we have seen from this president and from this Congress. So we have to keep educating our federal partners, our national partners on the vulnerability here for DC, for democracy, and for our nation. So I'm going to stay focused on that, because that's how we protect DC and that's how we protect democracy.
Councilmember at large Robert White. I should also make mention, a fifth generation Washingtonian, joining us right here on the Live Zone. Truly appreciate your time, sir.
I appreciate you, Guy.
Staying in the realm of politics, President Trump is once again opening the door to firing Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell. The president stating that he may even allow a major lawsuit against Powell to proceed. Meanwhile, President Trump will meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin in Alaska on Friday. The president framed the summit as a moment to fill out the Russian leader's parameters for ending the war in Ukraine. Joining us now to discuss this and so much more is political strategist and Ready to Go host Arif Halaby, back here on the Live Zone. Always good to see you, Arif. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Guy. Great to see you.
I'm curious, you just perhaps heard my conversation with at-large Councilmember Robert White with regard to President Trump federalizing the MPD right here in the nation's capital. Democrats are now calling Trump's D.C. policy takeover a distraction from the Epstein files, tariffs, and tax bills. Is that what's happening here in your mind? Is this truly a political stunt?
I don't think it is. I think it's interesting to me that so many people forget that it's the black community that is suffering. They will tell you they don't forget, except the councilman was so kind to bury the lead at the end and say, oh, by the way, if you wanted to commit a crime before, don't do it now. And the reason is because we're serious about putting criminals away and protecting minority communities. 56% of carjackings were committed by young men, usually young men and women, under the age of 18 and 17 years old. Why is that okay? Why should we have any crime? There's more crime per capita in Islamabad, Pakistan, and in Havana, Cuba. Sorry, there's more crime in Washington, D.C. than in the capitals of Cuba and Pakistan. Look, this is important to understand. We should be on the same page. The federal partners are very good at understanding how to fix things when it comes to putting more money in the pockets of unions, putting more money in the pockets of NGOs that don't do anything except collect more money. And I think that's the threat. Guy, this is a big deal. It will threaten the pocketbooks of a lot of people.
Yeah, it's a big deal in a major way, and yet again, something we expect the White House to address. I should make mention we are expecting a White House press conference to get underway beginning in the 1 o'clock hour. Let's move on to Russia, Arif. Trump is now framing the summit as a moment to, in essence, fill out the Russian leader's parameters. I'm making reference to the summit that's set to take place this upcoming Friday in Alaska. Shouldn't there be more to that meeting than just filling out the parameters, if you will?
Guy, have you heard of any of the irony about what's happening, why this is in Alaska? Honest question.
I have not.
You?
I have not.
Russia used to own Alaska for about 68 years. Russia owned Alaska. We bought it from Russia as the United States in, I want to say it was 1867. But when we bought it from Russia, we bought that as well as expelled San Francisco, their settlement. They didn't own San Francisco, but they had Russian settlements all the way down to San Francisco. Maybe this is a little bit of telegraphing, saying maybe it's time for Russia to get out of the occupied territories that it has in Ukraine, as well as it's time to meet in Alaska, where, surprise, you used to own it. I think this is a good opportunity. Look, President Trump is very good at having layers of political meetings, diplomatic meetings behind the scenes. So people are meeting as we speak to lay out foundations and get agreements in place before they actually meet. We'll see how that happens, Gay.
Yeah. To your point, he did write the art of the deal, so perhaps a deal can finally be struck with regard to Russia and Ukraine. Let's move on to Harvard University and the White House. Apparently, they have moved toward a potential landmark settlement. That settlement is to the tune of some $500 million. Now, should this happen, it would end a months-long battle that pitted the nation's wealthiest school against the Trump administration's extraordinary crackdown on higher education. It looks like, yet again, it's the art of the deal. That deal is going to be done, Arif.
You know, imagine, Guy, if you had 94% of Harvard University all be women, or 94% all be white men. You would say that's ridiculous. There's no diversity. There's no opportunities to learn about other ideas, except there's about 90% plus of all left-wing or Democrat ideas. Look, I think both sides have good ideas, but don't you want a more well-balanced graduate to come out of a place like Harvard? I think I do. There's $58 billion in Harvard. The interest alone on that endowment, the interest alone is enough for the next 200 years for men and women to go to Harvard for free. Harvard is not an educational institution. It is basically a hedge fund that, by the way, we have college campuses. So the president needs to treat them as such. I think the federal government needs to push back. All of these schools, from the University of Texas to Yale, UCLA, it's time to say, after a certain amount of endowment, we understand, $10 billion, whatever the number is, after that you have to start paying taxes on your interest. Harvard pays no taxes on the money that it makes. It's a big deal.
Yeah, big deal yet again in a major way. Speaking of big deal, a lot of folks say, hey, when it comes to the wacky tobacco, aka marijuana, well, that happens to be a big deal. President Trump saying yesterday his administration was looking at reclassification of marijuana and intends to make a decision in the upcoming weeks. As he stated, it's a very complicated subject. I've heard great things having to do with the medical and bad things having to do with just about everything else. What direction do you think the president will go in, Arif?
So, Guy, when I was in high school, I ended up being around a lot of drugs. I never took any drugs and never smoked marijuana, thankfully. But when I became a Los Angeles policeman, we realized that you could put people in jail for a long time for what today you could walk around the city of Los Angeles and not have any problems. But THC, the active psychedelic component to marijuana, was about 9 or 10% of marijuana back then. 9 or 10. Today, you're 90%. And a male brain does not really form until 27 years old. Some will say 57. I'm still working on that, but 27 years old. And so when you smoke weed that is 80, 90% THC, it prevents the forming of the brain. I mean, experts will go over this better than I can, but you start to see all sorts of schizophrenia and bipolar disorder that are happening in young men. And it's attributed to a lot of this type of, well, involvement in marijuana. Look, last night, just 12, 15 hours ago, we're sitting in our living room. The doors were open and a big whiff of weed comes from our neighbor. These are middle-class homes, but now that it's legal, they stand outside. They don't want to pollute themselves, but we have to shut all of our doors or windows. That's just a small inconvenience, but go to parking structures, go to grocery stores. You smell it everywhere. I don't know if that's the right thing to do.
Yeah, well, yet again, you live in the state of California. That has been, I would argue, common there for quite some time. It has now become common right here in the nation's capital as well. Just take a walk down the street, you are likely to smell the same stuff. A federal judge in New York now rejected a request by the Justice Department, if you will, to unseal grand jury transcripts related to the criminal investigation of Ghislaine Maxwell. Maxwell is serving a 20-year prison sentence for crimes related to, let's just say, procuring underage girls to the sexual abuse of Jerry Epstein. What's the latest with this, Arif, and how are you looking at this, and will we ever get to the end of the road?
Yeah, this is definitely an unforced fumble by the Trump administration. They're making a huge mistake, as opposed to the left that every time Trump says up, they say down, left, they say right, black, they say white. This is true. You're going to see a lot of Trump's base, a lot of folks that support him. I'm a conservative more than a Republican in the sense that, look, I think this should be released. Here's the problem. There are names inside of that file. I have friends in a lot of places these days, and you can hear kind of whisperings of the types of names. And look, there are both sides of the political spectrum, including some very prominent Democrat names. And I think people need to understand this will shake up the entire system. And unless you can prove it, if you just associate a name to it, I don't know if that's the right thing to do. I think he needs to release more than he has. I think the base is upset, and I think there are people that don't support it. Do I think it's a distraction? No. I actually think the Trump administration went before with a wink and a nod to the federal judge and says, we want to release it. Are you sure we can? Can you please give us approval? And they said no, and he said, well, look, hey, we tried. This is the we tried part.
By the way, it was the wink part for me. I'm still working on that. I'll let you know when I figure it out. We'll end with this, Arif, and that is the Democratic National Committee Chair, Ken Martin, apparently will ask party members later this month to take the first steps towards restricting corporate and so-called dark money. Now, I should explain that dark money refers to campaign spending by groups that do not disclose their donors' spending. Do you think this is going to happen in the next presidential election?
100% no. I will fly to Washington, D.C. and take you to an amazing steak dinner at the Capitol Club if you'd like, if this happens. Never will it happen.
Oh, wow.
Not even close. Not even close.
That's what you call straight to the point. By the way, I've eaten there before. It's an amazing restaurant, so I hope you are. I hope you're wrong, sir. I will definitely take you up on that. Yet again, Arif Halaby joining us, All Things Politics. Arif, real quick, folks want to get a chance to check out your radio show. How would they go about to do so?
Yeah, thank you for asking, Guy. Look, it's AM 870, The Answer, every Sunday from 11 to 1, politics, finance, kind of how to get out of debt, manage money, plan for retirement, the total financial hour on the AM 870, The Answer, 11 a.m. Pacific time.
All eyes, all ears on your show, and all eyes and all ears happen to be on the White House as well, where yet again, in just a couple of minutes, we are expecting the White House to hold a press briefing. Obviously, top of mind, what's happening in the nation's capital. President Trump federalizing the Metropolitan Police Department. And oh, by the way, that meeting with Vladimir Putin set to get underway this upcoming Friday. Definitely will be discussed, and we'll follow it for you right here on the Live Zone.
I love it. Yesterday? Well, you should have stood back there. It was, yeah, I saw that. That was a good idea. It was unbelievably hot.
All right, guys, just like that, right back at you on the Fox 5 Live Zone. Time now for a little celebrity dish. Looky, who's here? Live in person. It's kind of weird. Yeah, you're here. The one and only media prince joining us right here on the Live Zone.
We're bringing it all in because we are what? We are actually live in the zone.
It feels weird you saying that like right here instead of coming at me. Good to see you, my friend.
It's good to be seen and it's good to be right here in the studio.
All right, let's kick it off because, boy, do we have a lot to chit-chat about. In this case, we're going to kick it off with none other than the ex-husband of Oscar winner Halle Berry, finally opening up about why he let one of the world's most beautiful women just walk out the door. Yes, I'm talking about former MLB player David Justice. Said on Matt Barnes' All the Smoke podcast, he decided to leave Berry because he couldn't see her as the mother of his kids. He chalks it up to his knowledge on relationships being very limited. As for a man from the Midwest, he compared his mom, who was traditional, to Berry. What say you about this, Media Prince?
Well, first off, I was wondering why is David just being so candid? Because first, we don't care. But since you're making us care, you knew Halle Berry was Halle Berry when you went after Halle Berry. And your problem with Halle Berry was that she was Halle Berry. The math's not mathing. You knew she didn't cook or clean when you were dating. She's Halle Berry.
Yeah.
If she has movies, she produces shows, she writes shows, you see her everywhere. When did you see her have time to cook or clean? Now, the cleaning aspect, I would love to make sure she knows how to clean, but again, she's rich. I'm pretty sure she has someone in place to do everything and just right. And she's a mom now, so clearly she knows how to be a mother. And I think he's also going to just have to eat that. I'm ready for what her response will be to this, because she kind of talks now in this social media age.
The clapback will be real, to say the least. You know, it's really kind of interesting to wait all this time, to your point, prior to just, kind of letting it stew, if you will. If you had something to say, why not say it earlier? But I guess every now and then you maybe get a little liquid courage and say, you know what, I want to spill it all.
It's doing what it's supposed to. It's getting his name back in the limelight, and anything connected to Halle Berry is going to be a story. So he knew what he was doing.
Yeah. All right. Well, like you said, a lot of folks don't necessarily know about him anymore, to a certain extent, unless you follow baseball.
I didn't know who this brother was until we talked about this story. I forgot she was even dating him.
Oh, you happen to be a Braves fan. Hey, let's move on to Jennifer Aniston, speaking on the time in pop culture known as Brangelina. The romance between Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie began when Jennifer's marriage to Brad was coming to an end. She recently told Vanity Fair that it was juicy reading for people, and if they didn't have their soap opera, they had their tabloids. She says, quote, "It's a shame that it had to happen, but it happened, and boy, did I take it personally."
Yeah.
That's gotta be tough, Media Prince.
Yeah, that was our first time as pop culture. We got to see, like, a woman take someone's man, and he left and freely became part of the Angelina Jolie story. It makes you wonder, was Angelina Jolie the first city girl?
Ooh, that's a good one.
But no, that was a really, I'm sure, a pretty difficult time. Thank goodness there was no social media. Because
can you imagine that?
Oh, Jennifer would have crashed out. And can you imagine how much money would have been lost once she did crash out? Because that is a crash out type of, it was worthy of a crash out.
Sure.
You stole my man, you're leaving me dry, and now you guys have the audacity to go out here and perpetuate this relationship in front of everyone's faces. Oh, I'm gonna get you in him. So I'm glad to see that she's in a better headspace again, talking about how she took it in because she didn't really say anything back then. She just kept working. So we had to just speculate what she felt at that time. So in this era of openness, I'm glad she's letting us in more on what that is. And so, clearly she had the last laugh.
In a major way.
In a major way.
That's just so interesting to me. And yet again, to be the butt of all jokes and to be that famous and popular had to be tough. To your point, thank God social media wasn't around. Because can you imagine any and every time you scrolled, you would have seen that headline pop up right there.
And it took over.
Yeah. Instead, you see the media prince doing all good things.
Hey,
Hey, we're going to move on to Larsa Pippen. Made headlines over the weekend for clapping back at a doctor who claimed, well, she had excessive facial filler. After said doctor posted about Larsa's possible work, the Real Housewives of Miami star commented she had an allergic reaction to a treatment she underwent. She then wrote, "Honey, I had PRP and had an allergic reaction, so chill out." What say you, Media Prince?
I say she just have to stop touching her face. She does not look like the old Larsa Pippen. And if you're a watcher, what is it, Real Housewives of Miami, I think she is. She looks like she still gets work done, but I do think that picture was probably a little exaggeration because clearly from the video of her recording, she doesn't look too bad, but you could tell she's of that world of the fillers, of the plastic, and hopefully she stops to where she is because it's okay for now, but these ladies are just taking it and going places like, I don't know if you're smiling at me or winking at me. I can't tell the difference at this time.
Yeah, I mean, that is so true. I like the fact, though, that she was very candid and somewhat open with regard to what happened. A lot of folks wouldn't sweep it under the rug, but hey, you know what? First of all, I'm doing it. And second of all, I had an allergic reaction. Happens.
I think we're in an era, too, where remember, it used to be so taboo to talk about plastic surgery, like with the things you got done. They're telling us they getting stuff in there. They're telling us things that we didn't even ask for that they got done. So I guess she's just now taking it all in and embracing what she got done and also letting us know that she's not afraid to let us know what she got done because it's getting thrown in her face anyway.
Well, one thing we are always embracing happens to be the Media Prince. Before we let you go, you working on anything?
Yes, I am working on the last season of Conversations with the Media Prince. My new book, Prince, A Tale of Poems, is out. I have to get you a copy.
Oh, yeah.
We are DMV 35 under 35. People's Choice nominations are just open. We already have over 11,000 submissions.
Wow.
Y'all need to slow down. And other than that, just follow me on the Media Prince and listen to me on the radio every weekend. Trying to be just great like this guy, the voice of the city.
It goes hand in hand. We both do good things. Media Prince joining us yet again for a little celebrity dish right here on the Live Zone. We are what?
Live in the zone. Really?
We'll be right back.
I was debating. We were debating driving. Off. We had.
So you're
Well, I think I was.
No, it's not mine. Not much has changed. Are you back? I mean, I would
Still on the lead.
I just decided to check it out. Yes, that. Pull me back in. I call it my personal.
All right, guys, back here on the Fox 5 Live Zone, you are taking a live look at the White House press briefing room, where any minute now we are expecting White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt to approach that podium. I can tell you we cover this quite often, and there is a lot of activity, if you will, that's taking place as we await her arrival. Obviously, top of discussion will likely be President Trump federalizing the MPD, along with Trump's planned meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin, set to get underway this upcoming Friday. When that happens, we'll take you there live, right here on the Live Zone. Well, it's a troubling story. Some millions of children really growing up underprivileged, living in poverty, if you will. The question is why, and the question is, where is it happening at? Well, that's where we bring in our next guy, Chip Lupo with Wallet Hub, who recently conducted a study of the, well, let's just say, states with the most underprivileged children. Chip, kind enough to join us right here on the Live Zone. Always good to see you, my friend.
Good to see you too, Guy. Glad to be here.
All right, we're talking about two topics. Obviously, this first one is somewhat distressing, if you will. 1 in 7 children, Chip, live in poverty. When I saw that headline, dear God, that's something that will really grab your attention and pull at the heartstrings. The question is, what state and or in this case, city is D.C.? And I can tell you, according to your stats, we rank at number 7.
Right, and this is a city-driven study, and you're right, 1 in 7 children live in poverty. Now, this is according to the Children's Defense Fund. And also, even more disturbing, said a child is abused or neglected every 54 seconds.
Wow.
So in 1 year of all confirmed cases of child maltreatment, this racks up almost $600 billion in costs over a children's lifetime. So yeah, it's a sobering report, and it does not bode well for children in some of these environments. But as you mentioned, Washington, D.C. is 7th. Now, this is a study where it's not good to be at number 1. The lower you are, the better off your children are, at least in terms of being of underprivileged. So 7th, it's not a good number for Washington, D.C.
Chip, can you talk about with the criteria, if you will, not to cut you off, but how were you all able to come up with these numbers?
Okay, what we did, and I apologize for not leading off with that, which is what I usually do. We evaluated all 50 states and Washington, D.C. across 3 key dimensions: socioeconomic welfare, health, and education. And from there, we applied 31 relevant metrics, and those run anywhere from share of children in households with below poverty income, child food insecurity rate, share of maltreated children, uninsured children, things of that nature. So to put that in perspective, Washington, D.C. ranked 2nd in socioeconomic welfare. Again, not a study, not a ranking in which you want to be close to the top. So
Yeah.
2nd is a very, very disturbing number. The highest share of children in single parent families in the country, almost 50%. Tied for 1st, and even more distressing, the unaccompanied homeless children and youth rate. So it's tied with Portland, Oregon for homeless children.
Well, as the saying goes, Chip, and I just want to make sure we get to the second one. You know, you've heard the song, I believe the children are the future, teach them well and let them lead the way. In this case, well, quite honestly, we all need to do better so that they can just do that. Chip, I want to move on to our second one.
Very quickly, just to not leave out your folks in Virginia, Maryland, they did very well. Virginia 46th and Maryland 48th. So they're in the top 10 as far as underprivileged children. So they have a much better shot in those states than they do in Washington, D.C.
Which is even more concerning with regard to D.C. because of its proximity. So yet again, very troubling. Chip, do you own a pet?
Yes, we have several. We are very active in cat rescues, cat fostering. So we have 5, and I've got 2 up here that are trying to take over the interview.
I think I saw a paw or 2, and I'm bringing that up because you all recently conducted a study with the most pet-friendly cities. Apparently, some 94 million households in America own a pet. How did D.C. fare?
D.C. did actually did very well in this particular study. Pull up my look at those. Yeah, Washington, D.C. Well, 59th out of 100 largest cities, kind of below average. But where they did rank very well is in terms of outdoor pet friendliness, because DC is it's a fairly walkable city. They do have a high rate of dog parks per capita, lots of park areas. Not so well in terms of cost. Veterinary costs are among the highest, but their access is there because there's a tremendous access to pet caretakers, animal trainers, dog-friendly restaurants, which is becoming a thing. But where DC needs to improve is in terms of pet friendliness of rental markets. A lot of rental properties or even places like hotels are still not as pet friendly as in a lot of places in the country.
I got to tell you, this was somewhat surprising with regard to DC ranking 59th for the pet friendliest cities. Everyone in my condo building owns a pet, but me. So when I saw them, it's somewhat staggering, but I can see why. Chip, we got to leave it right there, buddy. Always good to see you. Thank you so much for joining us right here on the Live Zone.
My pleasure, Guy. We'll talk again soon.
Well, earlier this morning, we got an indication of how far your money is going with the release of the latest consumer price index numbers for the month of July. The numbers show core inflation, which does not include food and energy, ticked up last month, but not as much as expected. So, what does all this mean when it comes to your dollars and cents? To get an idea, we welcome. And we'll just have to cut it right there. Obviously, we told you when the White House press secretary approached the podium and we'd take you there. That's what we're doing. Here's Caroline Levitt.
Vladimir Putin. The brutal war between Russia and Ukraine broke out under Joe Biden's incompetent leadership. But President Trump is determined to try and end this war and stop the killing. As the president has said over and over again, his strong preference will always be for peace and partnership, whenever those outcomes can possibly be achieved. There is no leader in the world right now who has been more committed to preventing wars or ending them than President Donald Trump. Just look at what took place here at the White House last Friday, when President Trump hosted the Azerbaijani president and Armenian prime minister and got the two leaders to sign a historic joint declaration for peace, ending a decades-long conflict that disrupted the region and claimed countless lives. In other news, we continue to see positive economic reports across the board. Today's CPI report revealed that inflation beat market expectations once again, and inflation remains stable. Overall, inflation has run at a 1.9 average annual pace in President Trump's first 6 months in office. Prices for everyday goods continue to decline. Energy prices fell in July, including gasoline, which is down nearly 10% over last year, and propane, which is down 2.5% over last year as well. Egg prices fell once again in July and are down 20% since President Trump took office. Shelter inflation, the largest contributor to overall inflation, is at its lowest level since October of 2021. Wage growth for American workers is beating inflation once again. As inflation declines, this administration continues to be wholeheartedly committed to putting more money back into the American people's pockets. American real wages are up 1.3% over last year and have increased each month since President Trump took office. And small business optimism, according to this morning's report, has also reached a 5-month high. Ignore the panicans and trust in President Trump. That is our motto here at the White House. The America First economic agenda is working. On another matter, yesterday, President Trump took bold action to finally restore law and order right here in our nation's capital. The president declared a crime emergency in the District of Columbia, federalized the D.C. Police Department, and mobilized the D.C. National Guard to end violent crime in our nation's capital. As part of the president's massive law enforcement surge, last night, approximately 850 officers and agents were surged across the city. They made a total of 23 arrests, including multiple other contacts. Last night, these arrests consisted of homicide, firearms offenses, possession with intent to distribute narcotics, fare evasion, lewd acts, stalking, possession of a high-capacity magazine, fleeing to elude in a vehicle, no permits, driving under the influence, reckless driving, and a bench warrant. A total of 6 illegal handguns were seized off of District of Columbia streets as part of last night's effort. This is only the beginning. Over the course of the next month, the Trump administration will relentlessly pursue and arrest every violent criminal in the district who breaks the law, undermines public safety, and endangers law-abiding Americans. President Trump will not be deterred by soft-on-crime Democrats and media activists who refuse to acknowledge this rampant violence on our streets. He is going to make our nation's capital the most beautiful and safe city on earth, just as he promised on the campaign trail. Staying on the topic of public safety, the Trump administration continues to shatter records on border security. According to brand new numbers released this morning from Customs and Border Patrol, illegal crossings have fallen to all-time lows once again. Here were the records set in July. Again, these numbers were released this morning. The lowest monthly nationwide encounters ever, down nearly 90% from the monthly average under the Biden administration. The lowest monthly Border Patrol apprehensions nationwide ever, smashing the previous record set the prior month in June. The lowest monthly Southwest border apprehensions ever. The lowest daily apprehension average ever. The lowest single-day apprehensions ever. And for the third straight month, there were 0 illegal aliens released into the country. Let me repeat that remarkable statistic. For the third month in a row, not a single illegal alien was released by the Trump administration into the United States of America. This is historic. Under President Trump, this border is the most secure it has ever been. When you fortify the border, when you restore deterrence, and when you empower Border Patrol agents and our brave men and women in uniform to actually do their jobs to enforce our laws, like this president has, this is the incredible result. And in the interior of our country, criminal illegal aliens continue to be arrested and removed. Here are some of the criminals arrested by ICE in just the last few days. ICE Buffalo arrested an illegal alien from Jamaica convicted of attempted murder. ICE Buffalo also arrested an illegal alien from Ecuador convicted of leaving the scene of an accident resulting in death. ICE Houston arrested an illegal alien from Mexico convicted of manslaughter. ICE Newark arrested an illegal alien from Mexico convicted of the sexual assault of a minor. ICE Dallas arrested an illegal alien from Mexico convicted of assault causing bodily injury. And already the Trump administration has arrested more than 300,000 illegal aliens in 2025. Again, more than 300,000 illegal alien criminals have been arrested in the interior of our country in the first 6 months of this administration. And despite many false reports in the media, nearly 70% of these arrests have been criminal aliens with criminal charges or prior convictions. This is success all around. This is removing the most dangerous public safety threats from America's communities and returning these individuals to their home countries. So there's been success all around. I'm sure you have a lot of questions today. I'm happy to get to them, so let's get started. And as always, we'll start with our new media seat, who is our podcast host today, Benny Johnson. Benny, why don't you kick us off, and thanks for being here.
Thank you, Caroline. As a DC resident of 15 years, I lived on Capitol Hill. I witnessed so many muggings and so much theft. I lost track. I was carjacked. I have murders on my Ring camera and mass shootings. I witnessed a woman on my block get held up at gunpoint for $20, and my house was set ablaze in an arson with my infant child inside. And so to any reporter that says and lies that DC is a safe place to live and work, let me just say this. Thank you. Thank you for making the city safe, because no parent should have to go through what my family went through, having the fire department rip open their door to save their infant child. And so thank you for your work on securing this city. My question to you is this. Nancy Pelosi has attacked the president for deploying the National Guard to the city, saying that it is to cover for his incompetence. Hillary Clinton has also attacked the president for securing the city of Washington, D.C. I'd like to get your response to Nancy Pelosi and Hillary Clinton.
Sure. Well, first of all, Benny, I'm so sorry that happened to you and your family. There have been, unfortunately, far too many victims of crime in this city, and I know the majority of residents in the District of Columbia agree with you. In fact, a new poll from the Washington Post I was reading this morning, this was released in May of 2024, so it's quite funny how many of you in the media agreed with what the president was saying yesterday, but now once the president says it, Many of you are disagreeing with him, but this poll released by the Washington Post found that 65% of district residents think crime is an extremely serious or a very serious problem, and this was up from 56% last year. So the concern that you share with so many other residents in the District of Columbia is real, and that's why this president is taking action to address it. To get to the heart of your question, I think it's despicable that Democrats cannot agree that we need more law and order in a city that has been ravaged by violence, crime, murders, property theft. This should be a winning issue for all Americans. I don't understand. It's just anything President Trump does, the Democrats want to disagree with. I think the president would love to work with Democrats on this issue to bring law and order to America's cities, but unfortunately they have failed, and that's why he's taken this historic action to federalize the National Guard. And as you're seeing from last night's numbers, we already have seen success. We are removing violent offenders, we are arresting criminals, and we are removing drugs and firearms off of the streets of the city to make it safer for all of its residents.
Just a very quick follow-up to that. Given the heroic actions of a member of this administration just a few blocks from this building, will the president consider giving the Presidential Medal of Freedom to Big Balls?
I haven't spoken to him about that, but perhaps it's something he would consider. I'll ask him and get back to you, Benny. Thanks for being here. Gabe.
Thank you, Caroline. Regarding the Putin, President Trump summit on Friday, why not invite Ukrainian President Zelensky to that summit? I know the president said yesterday that he planned to speak with him right after the summit and even before, but why not invite Zelensky, and whose decision was it to not invite him? Was it the president or was it President Putin?
Well, this meeting came about because the president of Russia asked the president of the United States to meet through his special envoy, Steve Witkoff, who, as you all know, traveled to Russia to have a conversation with Putin at his request. And so the president is agreeing to this meeting at the request of President Putin. And the goal of this meeting for the president is to walk away with a better understanding of how we can end this war. And the president said at this podium yesterday when he joined all of you in the room that he hopes in the future there can be a trilateral meeting with these three leaders to finally bring this conflict to an end. But this administration has really used every lever, has taken every measure to achieve peace through a diplomatic solution. And I think the president of the United States getting in the room with the president of Russia, sitting face to face rather than speaking over the telephone, will give this president the best indication of how to end this war and where this is headed.
And another question on something that happened yesterday, but I wanted to get the White House response. A judge ruled that the grand jury transcripts in Ghislaine Maxwell's case should not be released. What's the White House response to that? And do you plan to appeal? And what do you tell President Trump's supporters who want that information released?
We think that decision is unfortunate. Of course, we moved to unseal that information because the president has said he wants to see credible evidence released. As for the appeal process, I would defer you to the Department of Justice for that.
Rachel. Thanks so much, Caroline. We're learning that President Trump spoke with Ukrainian President Zelensky. I was curious if you can share any more details about their call, and did Zelensky give President Trump any red lines, any non-starters ahead of this summit on Friday?
Look, I don't want to reveal the private conversations between the president and President Zelensky, but what I can tell you is that the president has deep respect for all parties that are involved in this conflict and are trying to bring this conflict to an end. After Special Envoy Witkoff returned from his meeting with President Putin in Russia, his first phone call was to President Trump. And President Trump's first phone call was to President Zelensky and to our friends in Europe to keep everybody in the loop about where the United States can see moving the ball forward to end this conflict. And so we continue to be very much engaged with President Zelensky and the Ukrainians, but also our allies in Europe as well.
And then just one more for you. How does the president measure success coming out of this meeting? The president at times has suggested that Putin might be tapping him along. Is he prepared to walk out of this meeting if he senses that Putin is not serious about ending this war?
I think I just answered that question for you and what the goal and the expectation of the meeting is. And I won't jump ahead of any hypotheticals, and I'll leave it to the president to speak to all of you after the meeting, which I'm very confident he will. Steve.
Is he optimistic that a deal will emerge from this meeting, or is he simply going to listen?
I think this is a listening exercise for the president. Look, only one party that's involved in this war is going to be present. And so this is for the president to go and to get, again, a more firm and better understanding of how we can hopefully bring this war to an end.
Caroline, how did you settle on Alaska as the site for this? So there were some other sites being discussed. This is like it was a midpoint between the two leaders?
There were many sites discussed, but of course Alaska is a state within the United States of America, so the president is very honored and looks forward to hosting President Putin on American soil.
Last thing, is there a joint news conference plan, or will the president have a solo one? What sort of scheduling stuff?
Yeah, the mechanics and the scheduling, Steve, are still being ironed out. For Friday, we're working with our Russian counterparts to put those plans into action, and of course we'll keep you all apprised on the logistical details of Friday as soon as we get them. Charlie?
The president said at the podium yesterday twice that he was planning to go to Russia. Was that a verbal slip-up, or does he actually plan to go to Russia?
Perhaps there are plans in the future to travel to Russia, and on Friday the president will be meeting with the Russian President Vladimir Putin in Alaska, as you know. Phil?
Last week, the president said the CEO of Intel was highly conflicted, seeming to cite his past investment with Chinese companies that were doing business with the Chinese military. Yesterday, he called his meeting with that CEO a success. So what can you tell us about what the Intel CEO said to President Trump that changed his mind?
The president put out a statement that you cited, Phil. I will leave it at that. He shared his thoughts on that meeting and how it went, and for any further comment on that, I'll leave it to him to make.
Will the Bureau of Labor Statistics continue to put out monthly jobs reports?
Well, look, what I'll tell you about the Bureau of Labor Statistics, I believe that is the plan, and that's the hope, and that these monthly reports will be data that the American people can trust. As you know, the Bureau of Labor Statistics has made massive revisions after the last several reports that they have put out. And there has certainly been a decline in the quality and the reliability of data coming from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and there's been an increase in revisions. And this president and the administration is finally tackling this problem that so many have talked about, and the president is actually doing something about it. We need to restore new leadership that we can trust. As you know, the president has appointed someone new to take over the BLS, and so we need to look at the means and the methods of how the United States is acquiring this very important data, and all of that is going to be done, and the goal, of course, is to provide honest and good data for the American people to make very important economic decisions on. Michael.
Thank you, Caroline. Two questions, if I may. The president has talked about land swaps between Russia and Ukraine. Vladimir Putin says he wants Russia to hold on to Russian-occupied territory in eastern Ukraine. Is the White House at all concerned about the messaging that potentially giving over or allowing for Russia to maintain its occupied territory in eastern Ukraine, what that might say to other U.S. adversaries like China?
Look, right now, the President of the United States has done more to end this war than his predecessor, Joe Biden, who allowed this war to take place. This war, don't forget, happened at the result of the weakness and the incompetence of the previous administration. And so the president inherited this conflict, and he is determined to end it. And it's a very complex and complicated situation. As for the details of the plans that have been kind of tossed back and forth, I won't get into those, and I will let the President of the United States discuss those plans with the President of Russia, with our European allies, and the President of Ukraine, Zelensky himself as well. Sure, go ahead, in the green.
Thank you, Caroline. As far as the policing and security operations in DC,
speak up.
Is there a timeline? Do we know what success looks like? And is it going to last longer than 30 days? And also, is there going to be an immigration enforcement aspect to this?
So can you speak up a little bit? The air conditioning is bumping in here for all of you today after yesterday's heater, so we've got to stock up. You're welcome. Go ahead.
Is there a timeline for the security operations here in DC? And also, is there going to be an immigration component to this, and what would that look like?
Look, if law enforcement officers encounter a criminal in this city, and they are an illegal alien, of course the appropriate measures to detain and deport that individual will be taken, as they should. No city should be a sanctuary for anyone other than law-abiding American citizens, and that's been that has been the position of this administration since day one. As for the timing, we will reevaluate and reassess and make further decisions after this 30-day period is up. But within these 30 days, our entire focus is making sure that this is the most efficient operation possible and that we are removing as many criminals from the streets and we are cleaning up DC as best as we can and working with the Metropolitan Police Department to do that. I know the mayor just spoke several minutes ago. I was watching her on television and she said that an increase of in law enforcement officers on the streets will be helpful to deter crime in this city, and we look forward to working with these brave men and women of the Metropolitan Police Department to remove criminals off of our streets and to keep law-abiding citizens in the district safe. Josh.
Thank you. The president weighed in on Jay Powell again today, you might have seen. He said that he's considering allowing a major lawsuit against Powell to proceed because of the, quote, horrible and grossly incompetent job he has done. Can you tell us about that? What lawsuit is he talking about?
He's considering a lawsuit, and I won't speak on it any further. I will allow the president to do that himself.
Is it fair to say the administration is considering suing the Fed chair over this renovation?
That's what the president is saying.
Has he had discussions with anyone about this, or is this just like how advanced is this right now?
At this moment in time, the president is considering a lawsuit against the Fed, and I will leave it to him to comment further on it. Tamara, go ahead.
We talked about, yesterday we talked about the NVIDIA chips deal the president has struck. It was AMD, the 15% stake that will go to the government. Do you have any detail on how that came about? The president said he asked for 20% from NVIDIA. Did he make the same 20% ask to AMD, and or is this something the administration is looking to do with other either chips or products, going forward? Is this a model it wants to build on?
Well, look, right now it stands with these two companies. Perhaps it could expand in the future to other companies. I think it's a creative idea and solution. The legality of it, the mechanics of it is still being ironed out by the Department of Commerce, and I would defer you to them for any further details on how it will actually be implemented. But again, this was another idea of the president and his brain trust on his trade team to try to, get good deals for the American people and the American taxpayer.
The report that China is discouraging use of the H20 to some companies. Since this, we're reporting that overnight there was private guidance sent to companies not banning the chip but urging them to steer away from it. I wonder if you have any response to that.
I haven't read the report. I will, and we'll get you a comment on it. Tamara.
Thank you. Last week, the meeting with Putin was sort of described potentially as an opportunity for a deal. Now it's a feeling out. Has there been a shift in expectations within the White House or an effort to temper expectations about what success looks like for this meeting?
Well, I mean, look, I think both can be true, right? The president has always said he wants a peace deal. He wants to see this war come to an end. But this bilateral meeting is a bilateral meeting between one party in this two-party war, right? You need both countries to agree to a deal. The president is accepting this bilateral meeting with Putin on Friday, and I will let him speak further to it after it concludes about how he felt it went.
And could you also, completely unrelated topic, regarding the president's efforts in Washington, D.C., do you have any specifics about how homeless people will be dealt with, where they would be moved to? What does this look like?
I do, yes, and it's an important question, so thank you for raising it. The Metropolitan Police Department, with the support of the new federal agencies who have been surging on the streets of the District of Columbia, are going to enforce the laws that are already on the books here in Washington, D.C. For far too long, these laws have been completely ignored, and the homelessness problem has ravaged the city. So D.C. Code 22-1307 and D.C. Municipal Regulation 24-100 give the Metropolitan Police Department the authority to take action when it comes to homeless encampments. So homeless individuals will be given the option to leave their encampment, to be taken to a homeless shelter, to be offered addiction or mental health services, and if they refuse, they will be susceptible to fines or to jail time. Again, these are pre-existing laws that are already on the books. They have not been enforced, which is part of the reason for this federalizing of the National Guard to bring in this assistance for law enforcement. While we are targeting criminals and trying to remove criminals off of the streets, we also want to make DC safe and beautiful, and that involves removing mentally disturbed individuals and homeless encampments as well. So we will be using these regulations and code that already exists to clean up our streets, and we've already had great success. Not many of you picked picked up on this, but the United States Park Police has actually done remarkable work in terms of removing homeless encampments from the city. Since the president signed this executive order in March, 70 homeless encampments have been removed by the U.S. Park Police. There are only 2 homeless encampments remaining in D.C. federal parks under the National Park Service's jurisdiction, and the removal of those 2 remaining camps is scheduled for this week. So the U.S. Park Police will be leading this effort alongside MPD.
Just very quickly, he had talked in one of his social media posts about moving them very far outside of the city. Is that off?
No, it's not off. We're exploring how we could do that. But again, homeless shelters, offered addiction and mental health services, or jail if they refuse are the options on the table right now. And we'll continue to explore that option.
Sure.
Thank you so much, Caroline. President Zelensky said moments ago that he thinks Russia is preparing for a new offensive on at least 3 different areas of the front line. Is this something that you could confirm based on U.S. intelligence? And if the president sees that Putin is indeed planning major new offensive or moving troops, would he call off the meeting on Friday?
I'm not in a position to confirm or deny or comment on that intel at this time. Monica.
Thanks, Caroline. My question involves Russiagate. A whistleblower alleges that then Congressman Adam Schiff approved leaking classified information to smear President Trump's image during the Russiagate scandal. Does the president plan to investigate Adam Schiff, and what would accountability look like if more information confirms this report?
The president has already said he wants to see Adam Schiff held accountable for the countless lies he told the American people in relation to the Russiagate scandal. I brought Tulsi Gabbard out to this podium to talk to you about all of that, and this administration is taking accountability very seriously. As for this new FBI whistleblower report, I understand Kash Patel last night declassified a 302 FBI document showing that a whistleblower who is a Democrat, a career intelligence officer who worked for Democrats on the House Intel Committee for more than a decade, repeatedly warned the FBI in 2017 that then Rep. Adam Schiff had approved leaking classified information to smear then President Donald Trump over the Russiagate scandal. This is obviously a bombshell whistleblower report. Hopefully more people in this room will cover it as such. And I have a quote from the FBI director for all of you. He has said this: "For years, certain officials used their positions to selectively leak classified information to shape political narratives. It was all done with one purpose: to weaponize intelligence and law enforcement for political gain. Those abuses eroded public trust in our institutions. The FBI will now lead the charge with our partners at DOJ, and Congress will have the chance to uncover how political power may have been weaponized and to restore accountability." That's what the administration is focused on, and hopefully we'll see some more media reports on this whistleblower allegation. If this were reversed, if this were allegations against the president or any of these cabinet officials, I'm sure everyone in this room would cover it as such. Elizabeth, go ahead.
Thanks, Caroline. After yesterday's action to federalize the D.C. police, is the president still interested in working with Congress to end the Home Rule Act, something he's talked about in the past? Senator Mike Lee has a bill on it. Is that something he's still interested in?
The president is very much still interested in working with Congress to address many of the issues that have plagued Washington, D.C., such as the cashless bail policy, which has been a complete disaster for the city. Juvenile delinquency is another major problem in the city that Congress can address. So I know Congress is on recess right now. When they get back to work to Washington, this president looks forward to having these conversations with our friends on Capitol Hill so we can work with them to make D.C. safe and beautiful again. And again, we encourage Democrats to join us in this effort. Perhaps their approval ratings would move up a little bit if they did. I saw a new poll today. Democrat approval rating is at an all-time low, 32%. If they could just stand by the basic notion of law and order, perhaps they would see that tick up a bit, and we welcome them to do that. Dasha.
Thanks, Caroline. President Trump yesterday at this podium indicated this, so has NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte, that in order for peace to happen, it is very likely that Ukraine will have to cede some land to Russia. Zelensky has repeatedly said no land for peace. That's not going to happen. Has this administration communicated to Zelensky that he's going to have to change that position?
Look, I appreciate your asking that question in a different way than your colleague Michael in the back. I don't want to get into the details of these negotiations and these discussions that have taken place out of respect for where we are right now, and I'll let the president speak on it further if he wishes to.
One more about about Israel. I know the president has had a call with Prime Minister Netanyahu recently. Netanyahu is planning to seize the remainder of Gaza City. What is the administration's position on this move by Israel's government?
Look, this is an incredibly complex and complicated war that, again, was inherited by this president, by his predecessor, Joe Biden. October 7th was one of the worst days in history. We saw innocent people slaughtered, murdered, kidnapped by Hamas terrorists. This administration has taken extensive time and effort and resources since Inauguration Day in January to end this conflict. We have given many flexible arrangements backed by Israel to Hamas, and unfortunately, Hamas has never agreed. Looking ahead, I will let the president speak on where he sees this going, but this is, of course, an incredibly complex and complicated situation. The administration has made our goal clear. We want to see this conflict end. We want to see the hostages released, and we've tried. The president and his national security team have given extensive effort and time to doing that.
With how Israel has used those resources and the assistance that you've provided?
Look, I'll let the president speak on the further actions that Israel may or may not be taking. Alexander, good to see you.
Good to see you as well, Caroline. Thank you. The Kremlin is expressing interest that Friday's meeting will move beyond just terms to end the war into improving bilateral relations. There's talk over how they're interested in potentially restoring direct flights between Russia and the United States. Is President Trump open to those kind of peripheral conversations, or is this directly focused on ending the war in Ukraine?
I think this conversation on Friday is focused on ending the war in Ukraine as far as the president's perspective goes. Those conversations, I think the president is interested in having, but his main priority right now is ending this war and to stop the killing that has gone on for far too long. Carolyn. You're welcome. Carolyn. In the back. Go ahead.
Yeah, two questions on the economy. So first, we've had small businesses tell us that it's not foreign exporters who are eating the tariffs, it's them. And they've held off on raising prices, but soon they're going to have to raise prices. What is the White House's message to them?
The White House's message to our small business owners across the country is you have never had a better ally or friend or supporter in this White House than President Donald Trump, who is a businessman himself, who understands your concerns and who wants to restore wealth back to our country through the powerful use of tariffs. And that's what he's focused on doing, while simultaneously driving down costs. You have to remember, we are 6 months into this administration, and we had a president who had no business experience, had no idea what he was doing, and who funneled billions of wasteful spending dollars into our economy, which created the worst inflation crisis in a generation. Now this president is focused on tackling inflation, deregulating, cutting costs, cutting red tape to make it easier for small business owners to thrive. And again, the economic indicators show that we are moving in the right direction. In January, when this president showed up to the White House, the 6-month annualized core inflation rate was 3.7%. Today, 6 months later, the 6-month annualized core inflation rate is 2.4%. So we are trending in the right direction. Moving forward, since President Trump took office, for another 6 months, inflation will be tracking at 1.9% at this trajectory. You look at grocery prices, they fell, energy prices fell, fuel oil fell, ship fares fell, propane fell, butter, margarine, eggs, non-prescription drugs. You go through the list of items that are falling. And then I would also point to that report this morning showing that small business optimism has reached a 5-month high. So look, we inherited an economic mess from the previous administration, but this administration is focused on fixing it every day. And part of that is signing the largest tax cuts into law to put more money back into the pockets of these small business owners.
Just on the BLS, they collect the inflation data, obviously. If the jobs data is not reliable, should Americans trust the inflation data?
Well, look, the jobs data has had massive revisions. We want to ensure that all of the data, the inflation data, the jobs data, any data point that is coming out of the BLS is trustworthy and is accurate, which is why the president has restored new leadership at the BLS. Sure, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. Hi. Thank you. Hi. Gavin Newsom has said that California is going to sue in response to the government's demand for $1 billion from UCLA over the DOJ's anti-Semitism findings. Newsom has called this extortion and ransom, so I'm wondering what the White House's response is to Newsom on UCLA.
Bring it on, Gavin. This administration is well within its legal right to do this, and we want to ensure that our colleges and our universities are respecting the First Amendment rights and the religious liberties of students on their campuses, and UCLA has failed to do that. And I have a whole list of examples that I will forward to Gavin Newsom's press office if he hasn't seen them himself. Brett.
Caroline. Thanks, Caroline. What was the reason that President Trump chose to move on from Billy Long as IRS commissioner?
Look, I think the president wants to see Billy Long as the ambassador to Iceland. As you know, that is where he will be headed. And the president loves Billy Long, and he thinks that he can serve the administration well in this position. For now, Secretary Scott Bessent will be the acting IRS commissioner.
Timeline for announcing a new pick?
Go ahead.
Thank you.
Oh, Ed, go ahead, but then in the back, yes.
Go in the back first.
Okay, sure.
Thanks, Caroline. One foreign policy and then one domestic question, if I may. There are roughly 30,000 children from Ukraine who have reportedly been abducted and are kind of dispersed around Russia. They've been showing up on these websites for adoption. Is their return a red line for the president in any deal ending the war?
The administration is aware of these reports. I don't want to set red lines for the president on his behalf from this podium. However, the president did encourage Ukraine and Russia to speak directly to one another in terms of these humanitarian issues. And we have seen progress. You have seen prisoners of war swapped between these two countries as a result of these direct talks, as well as children, and that remains a concern. But it's one that Russia and Ukraine need to iron out together, which is why this president has encouraged them to speak.
And then if I can, the DC action real quick. The president said yesterday that this is a model federalizing the National Guard that could be used to combat really high rates of crime in other cities like Chicago, LA, Baltimore. What sort of authority would he have to deploy forces like that, absent the Home Rule Act?
Look, the president is speaking about what he'd like to see take place in other cities around the country. Right now, this administration is focused on making D.C. safe and beautiful again. When the time comes, we'll talk about that. But I will note that the president wants to see all of our nation's cities be safe. But I think starting with our nation's capital is a great place to begin, and it should serve as a model for the rest of the country. Ed.
Just to bind up a few of the DC things, because a lot of them have been asked, but in talking with Congress about potential changes to home rule and whatever else, would he also push the House to finally pass DC's budget so that it has access to all that money that it does need for policing, for schools, and for other services here in the city?
Yes, and as you know, he has done that. He put out a statement calling on the House to take up the Senate's legislation, and he stands by that position.
Let me take you back to something from last month. You guys announced the president was diagnosed with chronic venous insufficiency after his legs were seen swelling. How's he being treated for that? And while you were upfront about those health issues, curious if the White House would be willing to let us speak with his physician directly about those health issues. I know there were a lot of concerns about the last White House not making the physician available. Would the physician be available in this case?
I don't want to make that commitment on behalf of the physician, but it's certainly something we can look into and explore out of the effort of transparency, because unlike the previous White House, there is nothing to hide. You guys see this president working around the clock, literally 24/7, all of the time, and I will be happy to look into that request.
Can we at least get an update on how he's being treated for the swelling legs and for the hands and the other issues?
Look, you see the president every day. He's moving, he's working, he's continuing. There have been no adjustments made to his lifestyle.
Thanks, Caroline. I have two questions, one on DC, but on the Putin meeting on Friday, does the president plan to meet with Putin one-on-one?
Yes, that's part of the plan. And as for the other mechanics and logistics, I will let our team speak to that when they're ironed out.
And on what's happening in DC with the federal takeover, what we've heard from the mayor and the police chief is that their understanding is there has been no change in the leadership structure. In the White House's view, who is in charge of the MPD right now?
If you read the executive order, it will tell you. The leadership structure is as follows. We plan to work with the Metropolitan Police Department, but ultimately the chain of command is as such. The President of the United States, the Attorney General of the United States, our DEA Administrator, Terry Cole, who is now serving ahead of the Chief of the Metropolitan Police Department. They will be working together. Nope, Terry Cole, as you heard from this briefing room yesterday, is in charge of the Metropolitan Police Department, and he's working with the chief to ensure that law enforcement officers are allowed to do their jobs in this city.
Caroline?
Yeah, thanks, Caroline. I know you said earlier the hope is to maintain monthly job reports, but the president's new nominee for BLS Commissioner E.J. Antoni recently told Fox Business that the BLS should suspend issuing monthly job reports and only issue quarterly reports until the jobs data methodology is corrected. So does the president disagree with that assessment that his nominee has said there, or suspending these monthly job reports a real option?
I think he floated the idea of possibly suspending until they can get the data and the methodology in order. And this president wants to ensure that the BLS, again, is putting out accurate and honest data that the American people can trust. Since you brought up the new commissioner, he holds a master's and doctor's degree in economics from Northern Illinois University. He's the chief economist in the Heritage Foundation's Center for the Federal Budget. And in addition to his work at Heritage, he has multiple other roles. He's been widely renowned for his work on economic issues. He's been called before Congress to testify as an economic expert. So he's a qualified individual, and the president trusts him to lead this important department. I'll take a couple more questions. Sure, go ahead.
Given that the administration now has jurisdiction over MPD, can we expect, does that mean like personnel changes, hiring, firing? Can we expect leadership changes internally in the Metropolitan Police Department?
I just walked through what the leadership structure looks like right now.
Within the uniformed police department, right? I mean, does that mean that the Attorney General, others kind of have the ability to make those personnel decisions?
I would imagine it means they have the ability. As for any changes, I'm not tracking any. Again, we look forward to working alongside the Metropolitan Police Department, and we did that last night successfully, and we hope we can do that for the next 29 nights. Go ahead. Yes.
So in light of reports that ICE agents detained a 15-year-old student with disabilities outside an LA high school, even leaving bullets on the sidewalk, how does the Trump administration plan to ensure parents that their children can return to school without fear of being wrongfully detained or endangered by federal agents?
Where'd you see that report?
LA Times.
Okay, well, I'll have to look into the veracity of that report. I read the LA Times almost every single day, and they are notorious for misleading the public. I'm sure there's more to that story than the way that you just characterized it. This administration wants to ensure that all school children across the country in every city from Los Angeles to DC can go to school safely, and that's part of this administration's effort to federalize the National Guard in Washington, to ensure that ICE is removing child predators. I just read you a list of a handful, just a handful, of the hundreds of thousands of child predators that this administration is removing off of the streets of Los Angeles and every other community across this country, because we want to ensure this is a country where American school children can be safe, where they can prosper, and where they are not threatened by violent criminals, whether they are illegal or whether they are American citizen homegrown criminals, as this president calls them. So I will gladly go check on that report, and I'll get you the facts. Thank you, everyone.
All right, there you have it. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt addressing the press pool, providing us with additional information with regard to President Trump federalizing the Metropolitan Police Department, stating that some 850 officers were on the streets last night. At least 23 arrests were made and 6 illegal handguns were confiscated. The press secretary also touched on the 2 homeless encampments that continue to remain within national parks. She's stating that they will be disbanded sometime this week, and that the MPD with new agencies will enforce laws with regard to homelessness. Stating that in so many words that they will be given, they being the homeless, an opportunity to go to a homeless shelter. If they refuse, they will be arrested. We'll take a quick break and be right back. This is the Fox 5 Live Zone. Well, earlier this morning, we got an indication of how far your money is going with the release of the latest consumer price index numbers for the month of July. The numbers show core inflation, which does not include food and energy, ticked up last month, but not as much as expected. So, what does all this mean when it comes to your dollars and cents? To get an idea, we welcome Gerson Gibbs, Senior Managing Partner of Bellet Capital, back here on the Live Zone. Gerson, always good to see you, my friend. Welcome back to the show.
Thanks, Guy. Great seeing you.
All right, so let's jump into this. I got to tell you, so many folks had their eyes on this, and we now know. And so with that being said, the latest economic numbers show just what, sir?
They show that things weren't as bad as expected. A lot of predictions assumed that the numbers were going to be much higher, especially based on all of these tariffs and all of the changes that are going on with the negotiations around the world with regard to these Trump tariffs. The expectations that this number was going to be a lot higher and prices were going to be impacted and the value of the dollar was going to go a lot lower.
And so with that being said, yet again, the question arises, should one be concerned?
Well, I don't think you should be as concerned as prior to this news coming out this morning. We saw the tariffs go into effect earlier this year, and there was a lot of expectations that prices are going to skyrocket. Your dollar won't be able to purchase what you could purchase yesterday with it. So I don't believe people should be worried. I believe people should be a little more observant and a little more patient because, you know, the proof is in the pudding. The numbers were about 50% lower than anticipated.
Yeah, the proof is in the pudding, and it's also, it becomes relevant when you, let's say, head to the supermarket, you purchase eggs, what have you, and then, you get to the cash register and you realize, yeah, it costs a lot more than what I expected. And so I'm curious, the new numbers, how do they square with the president's campaign promise to, in essence, really lower prices on household goods and services?
Well, I believe that the president promises that tariffs won't impact things as negatively as people are assuming. And I think that with the numbers today, that's some kind of factual, you know, based on his approach and what he's been doing. There was a lot of confusion or concerns about tariffs because we didn't see it in most of our lifetimes. And this is a new thing that the president is utilizing to kind of bring a little bit of balance to the economy. But I think that the surprise of it, people just expected prices to skyrocket, especially since the news came out about a week or so ago with regard to the tariffs in about 90 countries. Consumers thought that things were going to go up, but they didn't. And core things did go up, as you mentioned. However, it wasn't the overhaul of increasing in prices as people anticipated.
You know, that is so interesting, Gerson. I took part in the conversation, or was rather a part of that conversation, where folks were going back and forth stating that, you know what, tariffs doing this, doing that, they have raised prices. But your argument is the numbers show it. That's not the case.
The numbers show it. The numbers do. The numbers show that there hasn't been a catastrophe like we thought there would be. Actually, the numbers came much lower than anticipated. So it's people rebalancing their thoughts, and I think that patience is a virtue, and we have to see how these things are going to play out. Of course, we know that he extended his negotiations with China another 90 days, and I think that also has an impact of the numbers today.
All right, Gerson, I don't see a crystal ball in front of you, yet I'm going to ask what you will predict what will happen in the near future.
I think the economy is going to keep booming. You know, we see what the markets did today. They're up about 400 points. We see the numbers with inflation. And I said it from the beginning. I think that we need to be patient. We need to see and wait and determine how these things actually play out before making any assumptions.
In that case, woo-saw. We all just take a deep breath and remain calm. Yet again, we have been speaking with Gerson Gibbs, Senior Managing Partner of Bellet Capital, yet again kind enough to join us right here on the Live Zone. It's always good to see you, my friend.
Great seeing you, Guy. Have a great one.
You bet. It's always good to see the wharf as well, where it's heating up. Plenty of sunshine for today. The question is, are we going to top out at 90? Currently 88 degrees, so we will have to wait and see. Speaking of heating up, tonight beginning at 7:30, oh boy, is it going to heat up with producer Chris on Do You Like It or Not?
You know, the one thing about my new shift is that I get to stay up a little later than I used to, which means that last night I just started seeing all of these posts on social media about Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce, the New Heights podcast, and this new album. on its way. I'm sure you've already talked about it today.
Yeah.
And it will have been almost 12 plus hours. I mean, when you make a midnight drop like that, you know you're dominating the headlines all the next day. So, of course, we're going to talk all about that new album, how she released it, and also Travis making some headlines of his own because he was the cover boy for GQ as well, and he's opening up all about their relationship, getting back into shape to hit the football field this season, why he wasn't necessarily playing his best the last 2 years.
Oh, wow. Really?
I'm not pointing the finger at Taylor Swift, but let's just say he was preoccupied. We're going to talk all about that. We're also going to talk about it being back to school season, obviously, and a lot of kids heading back to college. And a lot of parents are putting together some kits for them. They're calling them doomsday kits, but it's what's in these that is turning a lot of heads on social
Couple
media.
noodles?
Let's just well, that is a given. Obviously, you need that. But these kits are actually coming with everything from Narcan to Plan B, condoms, and more.
Wow.
Obviously, some parents argue in support of their kids being prepared for any situation they find them in. Others, not really big fans of this idea. So we're going to talk about that a little bit as well. And then one that may hit close to home for all the pet lovers out there. Bringing your dog everywhere you go or refusing to show up at all.
Wow.
Drawing a hard line in the sand. If my pet is not welcome, then I will not be there. Do you like that or not is the question. I know a few people who probably subscribe to this idea. They're not coming if they cannot bring their dog. And we've all seen the people in the grocery stores and
I don't
at
like
the
that.
bars and the restaurants who walk in with their pets. So this is one of those this is one of those ones that people get very, very passionate about. And I'm curious to see what the folks in the Lion Zoom room have to think about it tonight, because I bet there's a couple dog lovers.
Oh,
in
yeah.
there.
They're going to show up with their dog right
I hope so.
You know, holding them right
On
there.
Friday night, I demanded to see people's cats because remember, it was International Cat Day. And I got two. I got to see
Really?
two.
Wow,
I was
okay.
pretty psyched about that.
No Fido, no go.
No Fido, no go-go. Exactly.
I guess we'll have to leave it there. Tonight, beginning at 7:30, right here on the Fox Local app, obviously on the UTTG-TV page as well. Do you like it or not? And I absolutely love it. So make sure you check it out yet
That's
again.
right. We want to see
tonight
you
at
there.
7:30. I appreciate you. And
Thank
guys,
you, sir.
we appreciate you as well for watching. If you haven't already done so, as you heard me mention, download the Fox Local app. I love this thing. I was traveling yesterday, and I got a chance to actually watch a little bit of you. Thank you for filling in.
Oh, man.
On the
honored.
local app.
Honored.
It was just really cool. I love it because you could be anywhere in the country, the world for that matter, and get a chance to check out what's going on.
I'm actually going to join the folks in Minneapolis coming up at 40:45 this afternoon. They have a show similar to yours, and they wanted to check in with us,
That's
too.
awesome.
So another beautiful thing about the Fox Local app, worldwide.
Yeah. Speaking of worldwide, we're remembering beginning at 2 p.m. the U.S. Attorney Janine Pirro will announce the indictment of a Haitian warlord. You can get a chance to check that out right here on our YouTube page. You see it right there on your TV screen. Do so, and we encourage you to join us again tomorrow. On behalf of Emmy, I'm Guy Lambert. The Take now on Fox 5.